Welcome to Fixing Assets, and a little bit of a different video for you today. Well, I've been planning on making a video about the Kia for, about a year now. Obviously, being a modern car, it doesn't fit in with the rest of the fleet that features on the channel, in that the channel's called Fixing Assets, and generally speaking, a virtually new modern car doesn't usually need fixing. Well, virtually new, I have had it 5 years. And on the 27th of Feb, it's going to be 6 years since its actual build date. I've actually got a bit of paper this week saying its actual build date, so that was interesting. So, how has the reliable modern let us down? Well, not very often. But the latest incident wasn't really to do with the actual mechanical reliability, but rather the fact that, I bought a house down the bottom of a steep hill and it couldn't get up the hill, so I was effectively snowed in an inch of snow, which wasn't particularly good. I can't lie, I was googling 4x4s for a few days after this incident, but ended up thinking, it's going to be just cheaper to put a couple of snow tyres on the front. I need some new tyres anyway, so may as well get some snow tyres for the front, which will keep us going for a few months, then put some normal tyres on the front, put the snow tyres, somewhere, and put them back on next winter, because no doubt I'll have this car still when winter comes. So yeah, a couple of neighbours helped us out there. And to be honest with you, fitting the snow tyres has done the trick, because it hasn't snowed since I fitted the damned things. And to add insult to injury, you can tell that they're not particularly suited to normal driving conditions. So I'm looking forward to getting the normal tyres put back on. So my history with this vehicle goes back to the car I had before it, which was a 2014 Nissan Note. I had that car for about 3 years. I bought it at a year old. I put a significant number of miles on. I got it at about 14,000, sold it at about 78,000. So yeah, I had that car for quite a while, and it was a bloody good car. And the last month I had it, I spent 2 weeks driving around France, Italy and Switzerland. But as I said, when I got it back, it was 4-year-old, 78,000 on the clock, and believe it or not, I'd just replaced the rear tyres for the first time at around 72,000 miles, which I thought was quite impressive for one set of tyres on the back to do that many miles. And having said that, the only reason I changed them was because I spotted a massive bulge on the side of one of them, and within about 2 hours that tyre had been changed. It was ultimately one of the most reliable cars I've ever owned. It didn't want for anything, there was never any problems with it. But I decided I needed a change, or rather wanted a change. I wanted a new car, I wanted it to be bigger, because I've always wanted a bigger car, more useful, so that I can, put tools in and not have to rely on other people's bigger cars to do that. Have a decent towing capacity that I could use to, tow trailers with cars on. And ultimately I didn't want an SUV type of car. So I ended up with a choice between a Skoda Octavia or Superb, Toyota Avensis, a Hyundai i40 or a Kia Optima. The Superb turned out to be a bit too pricey for what I could afford, so I thought, I'm going to have a look into the Octavia. So I went to the Skoda dealer And I've got to say, they were very unkeen to make an effort to actually sell us a car, which I thought quite confusing. I had a look around the cars, they seemed alright. I went after about 10 minutes of looking. I hadn't been bothered by a salesman, which I thought was quite unusual. So after that, I went into the dealership and I said, "So what can you tell us what Skoda Octavias you've got in?" And he says, "Well, you let us know what you want. We can usually get a car of any spec you want." And I'm thinking, you should be, like showing us the car, letting us have a drive of it. But no, he wasn't too fussed on that. So I basically put the Nissan Note back on the road and ended up in a used car supermarket where they had the other 3 cars on the list. So I had a look at the Toyota Avensis and I thought, you know what, no, this isn't really much of a step up. Granted, it's a bigger car, but I wasn't too impressed. So then there was the choice of the i40 or the Kia Optima. Well, I like the look of the Kia Optima more. They were both basically the same car, same engine, same platform, I would imagine. But ultimately, the Kia was about 300 quid cheaper. So, test drove it. It was a brilliant car. Then I thought, you know what, this'll do. So I sealed the deal and came back about a week later with the car. So yeah, since then the car's joined me on another road trip to Europe. I drove over the Alps, over the St. Bernard Pass or San Bernard Pass, from Bourg Saint Maurice to somewhere in Italy, then over to Venice, Pompeii, the Amalfi Coast, Rome, Nice, and then plenty of auto routes up to Paris, Calais, and through a big hole in the ground and back up to home. It also survived the pandemic and was the only removal vehicle used for my house move, which again, quite impressive. So I have towed vehicles with this as per the intention, and I did own a trailer that was bought based on this weight capacity, and the weight capacity being 1,300 kilos, which basically meant that I could use it without a trailer license. But then they changed the rules, and if realistically that trailer was too small for towing what I wanted to tow, so now I can rely on trailer hire companies. But I mean, it has carried the Morris Traveller, the Morris Marina. I recovered that from down near Peterborough, really, Stamford, and towed that back about 200 odd miles up the A1, which did it marvellously. So now the science bit, concentrate. The specifications are that it's a 1.7 litre 139 bhp engine with 340 newton meters of torque, but it weighs 1,635 kilos, so it's quite heavy, and it gives it an 1,800 kilogram towing capacity, and it's more than enough for a twin axle trailer with a classic car on the back. In fact, when I towed the Marina back, you didn't really feel it on the back. However, when I was using the smaller trailer, you definitely did. It's 1.855 metres long, so it's a bit of a big beast, and was quite interesting driving along the narrow roads of the Amalfi Coast. The engine can do it can do 60 miles to the gallon if driven carefully in normal conditions on a long motorway run. But to be fair, on really inefficient, pushing it on twisty, steep up and down roads, 30 above is is guaranteed basically. And inside, it's the base spec. You've got cloth seats. However, the specification of it's ridiculously well equipped. It's got a screen with Android Auto on it. It's got a multi-zone climate control system, so it keeps you warm, keeps you cool. And if you've got one passenger that's whinging about the temperature, you can just tell them to twiddle on with their knob. It's got front and rear parking sensors, so it'll beep when you're close to stuff. It's also got a reversing camera, not the best one I've ever dealt with, but never mind. And it also has cruise control. It's got 552 litres of space in the boot, which granted isn't the class leader. It's still cavernous for what I need. My usual weekly shops, gets lost in the back of it. And the rear leg room is actually quite incredible. You could fit like basically a team of basketball players in the car, and they'd be quite comfortable. Well, maybe half a team, only 5 of them. And the driving position's lovely, low down, and really comfortable. And I mean, to be fair, it does handle nicely, and it is well planted on the road. I don't have a great deal to compare it to, but it's a very nice car. The task now is to change the brake pads on the left hand side of the car. Borrowed jack from Pentagram Motorsports, and here's some tools including lock and wheel nut, dugger and some new pads. Those are the old pads after taking them off. You can see quite well worn, that's why it's been making the noise. And if we go over to the disc, you can see the disc is quite scored. But I haven't got new discs, so we'll just put new pads on. Hope for the best. So new pads are on. We'll see how they go, and the other thing we need to do is check the other side, which hasn't been making a noise. So this is the other side. You can see the wheel is absolutely filthy from it being, winter and also being on my car. Can't really quite see the disc pads here, so I'll take the wheel off. The scoring isn't too bad on that side, and if we have a look at the pads, you can see there's definitely a fair bit of meat left on them. So I'm going to have to investigate why the wear is ridiculously uneven. So that's that job. Now on to the next job. The next task is going to be to give the car a bit of a clean inside. Now I've been to B&M's and I bought a nice cheap vacuum cleaner which is really working quite well, and it's got a brush on that agitates the dirt, and I've been quite impressed with it. Now as you can see, the boot is proper big in this car. Now this is my new spot cleaner. Again, another cheap thing from B&M's, because my likelihood of using it isn't particularly likely. Now that there is a blue thing, and that's a grey thing, and we'll see what the blue thing and the grey thing and all the little nozzles, and that's a blue thing with a brush on, all the little nozzles and clear things and all that magic, see what it does to the innards of the car. Because, well, the car's had quite a lot of use, being that it's now got 108,000 miles on. There's a clear thing. 108,000 miles. And here's what we're going to do. Now, that's the boot floor that we've just hoovered. We're not going to clean that in this video, but you can see it's done. Well, the hoover did quite a good job. I should say vacuum cleaner. Now this is the driver's seat. You can see where I've spilt a hot chocolate or a drink or something. 108,000 miles of farts and arse, and here's the spot cleaner. Let's see if it makes that stain disappear. Spray that nice water over there. It's got the detergent in, apart from the wash. It's a carpet cleaner after a while. I've got no carpet cleaner to disappear. You can see it's bringing it over there, doing the job adequately. Water is a big problem. And the stain has disappeared. I have done a significant proportion of the rest of the car. So the next thing is discuss what the plan is for the car going forward. Well, currently it stays. I mean, by rights, I'd have changed this car probably about 2 years ago. But one particular point to note is that my need for cars is changing. I used to do a 60 mile a day commute. It's now 18 miles. In fact, the old commute used to be nearer 70 miles. The other thing is that commute was mainly fast A roads. Now it's suburban, rural driving, twisty roads, 40, 50, 60, 30 limits, lots of steep hills. It's not good for the MPG. And to be fair, if I didn't do as much of the 60 mile per hour driving as I did, it probably wouldn't be good for the diesel particulate filter either. So currently, my needs for a car are the following. Needs to be a cheap commuter for the suburban and hilly roads that I'm currently driving. Infrequently, I also needed to be a cheap long distance machine that's convenient and it's happy to cover hundreds and hundreds of miles in a day. The other thing is towing capacity. I would quite like to, on a rare occasion, be able to tow it. I would also like it to have some decent space inside it so that I can, carry my engine crane about. And now apparently I need a decent winter car so that I don't end up, stuck in my neighbour's garage again. Neighbour's garage. I was virtually in my neighbour's garage. I was virtually up his driveway. I was blocking the road basically. So yeah, the Kia's sort of in the middle of that, but the whole winter thing would suggest that maybe I need to go on a 2-car. I'll just have a think.